Good evening, Broncos fans and Broncos country. We are not the Mile High Insiders. We're doing the old switcheroo. I'm Thomas Hall, and this is Ron White, my co host. And we are the Orange and Blue View. We decided to change things up and have a Saturday show on Wednesday just due to some scheduling challenges. So here we are. The Orange and Blue View is coming at you with some sort of hot topics. We're going to be jumping into it. But before we do that, I just wanted to give a shout out to my co-host. See how you doing, Ron? Can you say hello to everybody this morning or this evening?
Good evening, Broncos country. Welcome to another installment of the Orange and Blue View here on a Wednesday. I'm glad to be talking to you guys. And Thomas, we did have a lot of discussion, a lot of comments made by Sean Payton, a lot of praise from other coaches of Sean Payton as well with the annual league meeting this week. So
Absolutely. So don't forget, now we did the switcheroo today. So I just want to remind everybody on Saturday, Mile High Insiders with Luke Patterson and myself will be on 6 o'clock. But then it will go back to the regularly scheduled programming where we will be back on Saturday the following and vice versa on Wednesday. So keep that in mind. We're not switching it up permanently just for tonight. So hopefully we get a few more different people in here who can hear us that will want to join us on Saturday. So that'll be fun. But yeah, Ron, like you said, we have some stuff to talk about. But first, before we do that, let's say hello to Michael Ronquillo, the man,
hey,
the
Michael.
myth, the legend, as they say, coming in with Facebook's Stars. Thank you so much for the support, Michael. Thanks for being here. And he says, good evening, Thomas Hall and Ron White on Orange and Blue View. Go Broncos and buck 'em.
Thank you, Michael. We appreciate you as always. And yes, again, I think Buckham is the new phrase now. So again, thank you appreciate you being on here tonight.
Yeah, and the Buckham to me is, like I said plenty of times, you've heard me. I probably say this maybe every episode of every podcast I'm on. I want to kind of, step back, not get excited, not get on the whole let's ride the Buckham stuff right away. I want to see some wins first. But from the comments that we had that we've heard coming out of the NFL's annual meeting about Sean Payton by other coaches should make Broncos country pretty excited if you weren't already. And it's actually getting me a little bit more excited because of what was said. And there were some interesting things. And I'll first start out with Dan Campbell. And Dan Campbell has a pretty good relationship, obviously, with Sean Payton. And so, but he did say something to the effect of, and I'll read it. It says, Campbell at the annual meeting, he was asked about Sean Payton. And Campbell said, I feel like he just needed a breather, meaning he wanted to get away from football for a little bit and then come back rejuvenated. And he said that he needed a change of scenery. He said, I had a feeling he would be back. And I would say this, he looks rejuvenated. And that's a great thing, refreshed, ready to go, feeling motivated to coach, to the best of his abilities. And then he finally comes around and says, he definitely looks rejuvenated. If anybody can get that thing turned around out there, it's him. Now, that's a pretty nice comment from somebody he has a relationship with, obviously, but it's still a nice comment coming from another coach. Other coaches are excited for him. Now, what do you take of that? Do you think that Sean Payton really just wanted to, get away from it all and then come back? Or what are your thoughts on his comment overall?
Yeah, so I really think Sean Payton wanted to come back, steer the ship in the right direction, and of course get the best out of the NFL players. And to add on to what you mentioned, Thomas, Campbell also stated he knows how to put his players in a position to have success better than anyone he's ever been around. He knows how to use the totality of the roster on game day. And man, I think his ability to know, hey, this is what this player needs. This player needs a boot in the rear, or this player needs a hug, or just how to motivate. So those are things you never forget. And then they're going to miss him across the way. So with this praise, what we're seeing is, Sean Payton already mentioned that he saw the film and it was a lot bad. And I think we all can attest to, we saw a lot of bad on offense last year for sure. And what Campbell mentioned as far as how Sean Payton runs an offense seems to be true. Of course, what we saw in New Orleans. And we can only go up from here, guys, of Sean Payton turning this ship around, getting the best out of his players. providing those mismatches, getting his offense to click as they should be with Russell Wilson. Of course, we fortify the offensive line. So getting the best out of the roster as constructed now, I think that's what Sean Payton wanted to do, to kind of like a reboot in a way for Denver, to get the best out of these players. So of course, once you get the best out of these players, then we should see a more formidable team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a challenge, really for him to come in and turn the ship around. The Broncos have not been very good over the last few years, and it's pretty evident on the field. I think having that challenge to come in, turn it around, do something with it, do well with it. And if he, say he gets a championship out of it, man, what a Hall of Fame resume that would be. So yes, I'm starting to get a little bit excited. I think I'm going to try and keep it tempered a little bit, but there's a lot to like. I mean, obviously, the comment about him getting people in positions to succeed is going to be paramount because, well, one, Russell Wilson wasn't put in a situation to succeed, and I think a good coach will do that, and that's what Sean Payton's going to do. He's not going to turn him into Drew Brees. He's going to make Russell Wilson play the best that Russell Wilson can play. That's where I'm thinking. So. And then we've got Naj coming with a super chat. Man, thank you so much. It's great to see you here on the Orange and Blue View and on a Wednesday night. And he says, hey, brothers, who do you brothers think may be an under-the-radar player that you think will excel in Payton's system this year? That is an excellent question. Excellent question. I tend to wait a little bit till training camp before I really start to talk about these underrated players. But I'm going to let you jump in, Ron, and say it. And I'm going to think about it because I haven't thought about that yet. And that's a great question.
Thank you, Naj, for your support. We appreciate you. And this is a great question. So an under-the-radar player. I mean, I know there's been talk, obviously, with the receivers. They're not going to be traded now. So we expect for them to take that next step. I would say Albert O. I can see Albert O definitely excelling within this offense. Obviously, we know that Sean Payton is going to have a run-heavy offense. You may see some tight end sets in there as well, maybe with Dulcich. But I can definitely see Albert O taking that next step in Payton's scheme this year with the mismatches that he'll be able to do. Getting Albert O open in space. He's a good pass catcher. Obviously needs to work on the blocking a bit, but being able to just kind of run the seam with Albert O, I think he can definitely benefit from Payton's scheme this year.
I'm going to tell you one that everybody's going to just kill me for, but it's kind of out of necessity. It has to happen or it's going to be a rough season. Lloyd Cushenberry. Sean Payton's already come out and said that he's looks like our starting center. I already kind of thought that. I wrote about it a while back, about a couple weeks ago, saying it looks like they're not going to do anything at center, and they must like Cushenberry for some reason. They must have liked him coming out of college, whatever it may be. But necessity-wise, if this offense is going to go anywhere, Lloyd Cushenberry has to be much, much better than he was the last few years. He has to be, or he's going to be replaced. So those are the two options. So it's either a rookie that comes in or some old vet that they come off the street if he's not going to make it, or he makes that next step and becomes a great player. So it's really on Cushenberry. It's on him and fitting into the scheme. I think it's going to be a little bit better than it was last year. Hopefully there's some sort of, epiphany that he has that he's able to turn it on. But yes, that's who I'm hoping for. And that's who I think will come around just because the support is behind him. They believe in him and they're going to go with it and make him better.
And that's a good one as well, Thomas. And to add on, we've fortified the line with surrounding talent.
That's right.
So with stability at right tackle, with a new guard, hopefully Lloyd Berry should be able to take that next step and start to show some dividends here. So we got Phil McLaughlin coming in here. Thank you, Phil, for your support. We always appreciate you. He says, good evening, Thomas, Ron, and Deacon Scott. I still think we need a center first, but I also think we need to add to the D. Thoughts? Go Broncos, buck 'em. Yeah. So
doesn't agree with me.
So yeah, and I think that kind of Phil again. We always appreciate you, and I think that's where you know obviously the team is more high on Cushionberry than we are, and I'm still right there with you, Phil. I have to see it to believe it with Cushionberry. Now, the coaching is in place with Sean Payton and the new offensive line coach. So hopefully that should help, and Lloyd Cushionberry should start to turn it around. But based on what we've seen, it still leaves cause for concern. And although the offensive line has gotten better, will the guys be in there still trying to help Cushionberry out? Will he be getting pushed back at the point of attack? There are all these things that we saw on the film that leaves you to wonder if will he take that next step. Now, again, you should feel encouraged with the coaching, but I still have my reservations. And you're right, Thomas. He has to prove himself. This is a prove it year for Lloyd Cushionberry, and if he doesn't turn it around in those first few games, we can definitely be calling for his replacement.
And I don't want to make that sound like it's an endorsement for Cushionberry, because I'm the first one to say he's not been good. Like I'm only saying if I had to pick somebody now, it's kind of you either do it or you don't kind of thing with Cushionberry, or he's gone. So he's either got to step up or he's not going to do it. I think they're putting the pieces around him, like you said, and they're putting an offense around him that might help him. And so if he is going to make that next step, this is the year to do it, like you said. And oftentimes, it takes a little while, takes 2 to 3 years for an offensive lineman to really hit their stride. Even though he's struggled, he may do that. Now, this is, obviously a wild projection way in the early in the offseason. The question was asked, so that's who I threw out there. But I do, I hope, I guess it's more not optimism, but it's hope, right? That he's going to be able to do it, because they don't really have anything else. That's it. It's Cushionberry or bust right now. So that's kind of where I'm landing. But I would like to answer that second part of that question is about the D line. Yes, I think that is the biggest hole right now, besides needing to get another offensive tackle, swing tackle to back up the 2 tackles that they have there. But defensive line, that rotation is a little light. And I'm saying that because they lost 2 starters. They replaced one with Zach Allen, but they lost Deshaun Williams. And they're going to, obviously Mike Purcell has been a good defensive lineman, but he has some flaws in his games now. He's getting a little older. They need to bring in another veteran in order to fill out that rotation. And I would take a shot at somebody like Akeem Hicks, see if you can get him to come in for a year, not be the starter, but be in the rotation, because behind them, it's just young guys or really unproven guys behind the three that are projected as starters right now. And there's also been speculation that Mike Purcell could be a cap casualty eventually to free up some space. So yeah, D-line to me right now is the highest need to bring a free agent in before the draft.
I agree there. There's still weakness on the defensive line, and I can pull up the list of free agents that are still out there. But you mentioned, Akeem Hicks is one. Shelby Harris, I believe, is he still available?
I think so.
Okay, yeah. So again, there are a few options out there they can explore. They maybe can pick up someone later, but I also see them looking at that in the draft. But of course, that's to kind of help fill out your depth. It would be nice to have someone there with a veteran presence like Hicks or Harris to kind of help out, because you're right, that rotation is very light. And that can definitely be concerning. So I definitely see that as a niche as well.
Lawrence Rivera coming in. Thank you, man. It's great to see you here tonight on the Orange and Blue View. And he says, all I hear about the coaches meet is Sean being a horse. Absolutely. And that brings me to the next quote, really, which is Sean McVay, who's an offensive genius, so to speak, coming out and saying that he's looking forward to flipping on film, Broncos offensive film, every week and seeing what he can steal. That's basically what he said, Sean McVay. That's great. I mean, it seems like the Broncos were a very hot topic, other than Lamar and what was going on with his contract and stuff. It sounded like everybody wanted to talk about the Broncos, talk to the Broncos, and that's high praise. So obviously, Sean Payton, I've said it on here before, more seasons scoring 500 points or greater than under 400, right? So his offense is going to be good. He's going to put people in the right position to succeed. And I think people are looking forward. Other coaches are looking forward to seeing what he can do. And I think that's pretty promising. That's really pretty promising. So what are your thoughts on McVay? You think he was just kind of joking around, or you think he was really, really excited about what Sean Payton brings to the Broncos?
No, I think he was excited, and I think Sean McVay was serious stealing some of those sets, those schemes, because we know what Sean Payton's offense is about, right? There can be times when it's run heavy, and of course, he used Drew Brees with the play action. So getting some of those play sets and styles, I can definitely see McVay doing. It's very good praise. It's high praise coming from coach that's won the Super Bowl to another Super Bowl winning coach. So you're right. It's very encouraging to see that with these comments, now that we have Sean Payton at the fold, at the helm, that the Broncos now are being relevant. Like, when is the last time you've heard, Thomas, of another team stealing offensive plays from the Denver Broncos?
It's probably been a while.
It's been a while, right? I mean, go back to the Manning days of that happening. So it's, to hear that alone is just a breath of fresh air. It's very encouraging.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm encouraged, and I'm starting to get excited. I cannot wait for training camp to come around. But we still got to wait for the draft, so that's always fun too. But Gary Palmer, the legend, coming in saying, "Good afternoon, Thomas, Ron, and Scott. Glad you're feeling optimistic about Cush. Hope you're right. Go Broncos, Mile High Huddle for life, and buck 'em." Now, I want to say I got to keep couching this a little bit. I'm not. I'm only optimistic because he has to, right? It's like it's kind of one of those things that's you either sink or swim, and that's it, because there's really nobody to replace him right now. So I guess you can call it optimism, but at the same time, it's more hope, I guess, than optimism, Gary. But I do appreciate you coming in here with that.
Yeah, thanks, Gary, for your comment. Much appreciated. And again, we can only hope, right? Again, cautious optimism with this team. And again, with Payton at the helm, with new offensive line coaching, better players surrounding him, we can just hope that Cushenberry can be a viable starter at center. Because you're right, Thomas, that after Cushenberry, it's cupboard's bare. And we definitely need him to take that next step. So we hope he can turn this around, I guess, with this new Steve, but we just have to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, absolutely. David coming in. David Youngkin, good to see you. Thanks for coming in and with this comment. And it's a very valid one. He says, I would love them to win at least 10. You don't spend $100 million on the offensive line to get better and have the weakest link still there, center. So that's a great point. And we Ron just pointed that out earlier. Like, that is a weak. Everything's been kind of built around him. But if he doesn't perform, then the whole center part of that line is not going to perform well. And that's going to be a huge, huge mistake, a huge disaster if he can't cut it and they don't bring anybody else in. Because let's face it, they can go out and draft a third rounder, but there's no guarantee that guy's even going to make the team. He could be a bust, or he could not be ready to play. There's so many other things out there that can happen to a rookie. So it's like you said, it's Cushenberry or bust. I mean, there's Wattenberg back there, but I don't think anybody has any illusions that he's going to be a great, a great fit for the offense or be able to step up and be any better than Cushenberry was, even though that's not that hard. But that's you hit it right on there.
Yes, agreed. And going back to your comment there about the 10 wins, so I do see, even with the way this offense is constructed, just with coaching alone, we should get to 10 wins. Now, if we do see some sort of slump, depending on, of course, it kind of has to depend on how all this unfolds. If we do see subpar play from the offensive line, which Cushionberry is the weakness, then we start to hold our breath, right, on what to do. But, based on the players that have been brought in with the scheme, I do see the potential to at least have at least 10 wins and being able to compete with the Chiefs.
Yeah, I'd like to just touch on that, and then we'll grab George's comment here. If their health can hold out, they should be able to win 5 more games with a better coach and better health and some improvements that they've made. You would think 5 wins is not unrealistic. Yeah. Maybe it's 4, but they should be shooting for that at least. I think that health is the biggest factor. If they can stay healthy, they're going to win more games just on that alone. We got George coming in. George Fox, thank you, coming in from Facebook. We really appreciate you being here. And he says, what's your opinion on, I think, Latavius Murray coming back to the team? Denver Broncos for life, Mile High Huddle for life, and hit the thumbs up, guys. Yeah, definitely like the show. And join us on Saturdays. This is a little bit of a different crowd, possibly. So don't forget, we're actually on Saturdays, but we're taking over Wednesday tonight. Murray, why don't you hit on Murray and see what are your thoughts on Latavius Murray coming back, Ron?
Yes, I'd be okay with Murray coming back. Obviously, there's familiarity with Sean Payton. He did well last year. He's not going to give you the blazing speed and numbers as you would like, but he'd be a great complement in the running back room, having that veteran presence there. So I would say I would be okay with Murray coming back, maybe on a 1-year vet minimum type deal. I can see that happening. Again, the reason why I say that, because we just don't know with Javonte. Again, I know that the team is high with him coming back. He'll be fresh from the injury, but this injury, because it's so complex and severe, leaves a lot of questions to be unanswered. And I still don't know if he'll be ready even for the season, right? At least to start off for sure. So bringing Murray back with Samaje Perine, and I think they just signed someone else the other day. I think that'll be at least good until we know for sure, when Javonte can step back in the fold.
It doesn't seem like they're interested. That's the problem. Or maybe Murray wants more money and they're just not interested in for that amount, because they're really, they've Payton and everybody's been asked about it, and oh yeah, we like him, but there's nothing there to really indicate that he's coming back. Now, would I like him back? Sure. He was a solid player. And, he actually was probably the best offensive player most of the time at the second half of that season. But there's a lot of things to consider. So he's getting older. The running backs, they hit the wall after a while, and they're just not, they're not able to stay healthy. They're not able to be as effective. So it just doesn't seem like there's a lot of interest there, at least for the price that Murray wants. So my thoughts are they're going to go to the draft, and they're going to try and get somebody in the draft. And if everything kind of folds as training camp starts to roll around, and they're left with one healthy and experienced running back that can actually do anything, they might go out and try and see if they can coax him back or somebody else. But at this point, it doesn't seem like they're interested.
Yeah, and again, that could be a possibility of that Murray may want more money. The Broncos aren't willing to deal. And you're right. He is getting older. But again, I think based on just the complexion of the backfield right now, it would, only help to kind of bring more of that presence. And we will see. I think running back is also a position in the draft they can look at as well. Maybe in the later rounds, picking up someone. So that also may help kind of fill it out. But only time will tell.
Yeah. I mean, I've got my fingers crossed for Javonte Williams. I hope he comes back. I hope he comes back healthy, still the same player. But like you said, Ron, there's just so much doubt that he's going to be back, even to his old self, halfway through the season. So that's the big question. So I would like to see them do something. They just don't seem interested in it, right? It's kind of like they're satisfied. They're going to see what happens in the draft. And if they have to bring in a vet after the draft, as training camp rolls around, maybe they will. So I don't know. There's a few running backs out there that they can still grab that have some experience, some vets out there. if you want to throw him into the rotation, late in the game. Obviously Murray was able to do it last year, came in and played well, being plucked off of somebody's practice squad. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. Before they went and got Perrine, it was definitely bare cupboard, but I think they've made a couple moves that have helped. So I think I wouldn't worry too much about the running back group. Like I said, I'm more worried about the defensive line rotation and the swing tackle right now. Those are two keys before the draft that they need to shore up, because I think the secondary is going to be okay. I think the linebacking group's fine. I think the wide receivers are fine. I think it's those two positions that really need to be addressed before the draft rolls around.
Yep. Agreed. Defensive line and center for me for sure.
Yeah. I know, it's so strange. Like they watched the tape, right? They watched the offense. Payton said it was terrible. How could they miss how bad Cushenberry played? That I don't, and then be like, yes, we're going to go with it. And I just keep going back to the same thought. Payton saw him coming out of college, liked what he saw, and thinks that they can fix him, kind of thing. And that's what I'm. My head is gone, but that's a big risk, man. That is a big risk to take. So that's interesting.
Yes. Yeah. But only time will tell. Again, Payton, right. You may have seen some there, but as a fan, I just didn't. But again, new scheme, new system. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. We got a comment coming from Phil McLaughlin, just to change the subject for a minute, because this is a topic that I love. And he asks, do you guys think Mike Shanahan will make the Hall of Fame? Now, I'm a big Hall of Fame guy. In fact, I'm wearing my Tom Nalen Hall of Fame sweatshirt that I designed. It's available to purchase if you want to support his candidacy for the Hall of Fame. Put up, put a billboard up at the, in front of the voters' homes or something. I don't know what to do, but something anyway. But yes, to answer your question, I think he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, Mike Shanahan, and I think he will make the Hall of Fame. I think they were talking about him at the there was comments about Shanahan's candidacy for the Hall of Fame at the annual meeting, and they were there. So there's a buzz about it for sure. When he gets in, I don't know. The nice thing is they started to make it easier for coaches to get in the last couple of years. I don't know if that's changed now that they've expanded the senior pool to 3 this year. I don't know if that's going to make it a little bit harder. But if you look at his resume, now I think his resume going to Washington kind of hurt, but his resume is better than Bill Cowher's resume when he was at the Broncos. And Bill Cowher got in at the Centennial class. He was like shoehorned in immediately, which is kind of strange. So yes, and then on top of it, what he has done, like you can look at Bill Cowher and say he was a great coach. You can look at Mike Shanahan and say he changed football. He brought in the zone blocking scheme that is still used today. He did it so effectively. It wasn't just him, it was Alex Gibbs, and it was the offensive line, and it was, Turner, the running backs coach. They all came together, but he wanted to do that. He wanted to bring it in, and that is a lasting effect on the NFL. And you can't really talk about the NFL without talking about the zone blocking scheme. And if you don't talk about the zone, if you talk about the zone blocking scheme, you have to figure out where it originated from. And Shanahan was the head coach that made that all happen. So he has to get in. I think he's going to get in before Dan Reeves, but who I also think is deserving.
Yes, I agree 100%, Thomas. Shanahan should have already been in the Hall of Fame, if you ask me. Again, 2 Super Bowls, what he was able to do, the 90s with the back-to-back championships. And you're right, bringing in that zone blocking scheme that kind of set the footprint for, the offensive play, and it even used today. It's how do you not think about that as you're thinking about, candidates for the Hall of Fame. So I think he's definitely deserving. Now, it's a matter of when he's going to be selected. That's a good question. I know with the Broncos players, they don't, kind of look down upon a little when it comes to the selection with some of our players, and our coaches, I guess, for this matter. But I do see him getting in there at some point.
Yeah. And, I'll tell you my argument for people that say, Pittsburgh Steelers don't get any voting love more than anybody else. Cordell Stewart got MVP votes. Mm-hmm. Cordell Stewart received multiple MVP votes in, I can't remember the exact year, 2000, something like that. Anyway, that's my argument. Cordell Stewart, one of the had some of the worst quarterback seasons of all time, and he gets votes over much more deserving people. So the argument that Pittsburgh doesn't get some sort of love from the voters is false in my book. But I will say this: the Broncos have been getting into the Hall of Fame very well lately. It's the past players. It was what happened in the past that has pushed so many of the deserving players into the senior pool that we're not going to talk about, and that's the problem. There's a lot of older players that are just kind of sitting back in the senior pool, like we'll never get in kind of thing, because Randy Gradishar is still waiting, and you've got other deserving players that are behind him in the senior pool. So, but lately they have been showing the Broncos love, and I think that has a lot to do with people coming out, fans and other people supporting on social media and doing those things, just like I'm talking about, getting Tom Nayland's name out there and talking about him. People start to think about it, and that's helped a lot. But otherwise, I think maybe they probably would still kind of ignore them.
Yep. Agreed. And then we have William coming in here. Catalano, thank you, William. He says, I don't know why, but I still like Hamler and think he can do something here in Denver. So, yeah, I'm a big, again, thank you for your comment. And I'm a big Hamler fan as well. What he was able to overcome, him coming out of Penn State. We thought that he was going to be, the Tyreek Hill of our offense with the dynamic speed. And, we see that. We see flashes of the twitch, the speed. It's, the biggest concern, he just can't stay healthy. And, I would hope, again, knock on wood, most of our players stay healthy this year, and we can finally see Hamler break out, especially in the Sean Payton offense. Because I will say, when I did see the plays from Hamler, they were good. Like, they were explosive. But let's see what we can do, coming down as that deep threat speed in Sean Payton offense can definitely help. But he just has to, you have to see it first, right? He has to make sure that he can stay available on the field in order for him to do something in Denver.
Yeah, and that's the problem is this health. And the biggest problem now is he has a partially torn pec that required surgery. And there's some conflicting reports about how exactly long he's going to be out. But if he's not able to come back in time for training camp and into preseason, you may not see him on the team. He might get healthy enough, and they're like, well, we've already made other plans kind of thing, right? They brought in other receivers. They brought in, one of the Callaway. They brought in a couple other, couple receivers. One of them can, maybe fill that role. I don't know. They might go to the draft. He might just be the odd man out. And I love Hamler. I think he had a world of talent, but like you said, he couldn't stay healthy. And this might be the year where they're just, they say, well, we already filled the positions and because you weren't available kind of thing. And we're going to just roll with that team. So I hope not. I think you're right, William, that he can be a big part of this offense if he can be healthy. That's the big question. Can he stay healthy long enough to make an impact? And I don't see it.
Yes.
Yep. And Todd also, sorry, got Todd on my brain. I don't know why. Scott, I must have been reading a comment. Scott said that you can save some money too by cutting him. $1.6 million in savings. So yeah, that's another piece to even think about. If they fill up that room and they're like, well, we can save some money and bring somebody else in, you might see him looking for a job when the season starts.
Yes. And we got Phil coming in here. Thank you, Phil McLaughlin, as always, for your support and questions. Much appreciated. He asked, what do you guys think about Callaway? And is it possible Dulcich could be a sleeper this year? So, Thomas, I'll actually take the second one, and then you take the first question.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I think Callaway is a decent signing, right? He's not a signing that I think that they're going to bring in and say we can trade Judy or Sutton now because we have Callaway. It's a 1-year deal. They brought him in. There's familiarity. I think he's one of those players who he's not a true burner. I mean, he's not slow. I mean, 4 or 5 in the 40 is not slow by any means, but he's not a, burner, but he still has those field stretching traits, and he obviously out of necessity became kind of the number 1 receiver for the Saints, but that was more out of necessity because of injuries than really talent. But I think he has talent. I think he could actually replace some of that deep field stretching ability that they were hoping Hamler would be able to do before his injury. So I think it's a good signing. It's a 1-year deal. It's not gonna affect the receivers in front of him, Sutton, Patrick, or Judy, but it's definitely a good depth signing. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I think he might have some punt returning ability. I think is very limited, but they might want to look at him for that as well. I know that they brought in the cornerback Smith for the kick return duty, so it might be one of those things of let's challenge Washington for that punt returning duty. I'm not positive on that though.
Yep. And then for Dulcich, I think he can be one of those candidates that can be a sleeper this year. We saw flashes last season, right? Especially, I believe it was the game against the Chargers where I think he was running down the sideline and Russ hit him open for his first touchdown. So plays like that where he can just get open, running down the seam. Now, I haven't really watched much of his blocking. I think he probably would have to improve there. But I know Payton mentioned, I think it was at the presser, where that wasn't really one of the players he'd study or maybe just not have gotten to him at that time. But expect Alberto and Dulcich to be sleepers this year within the Sean Payton offense. Because, Sean Payton also likes to use his tight ends, especially on the blocking side and getting them in space. So I do expect Dulcich to be a sleeper. Of course, he has the size, the hands to do it. So I expect big things from him as well.
My thoughts on that is I think he's going to be productive, but I don't think he's a sleeper. I think people are expecting him to be a really good tight end in this offense. So I don't look at him as a sleeper because everybody really expects him to kind of break out this year. We saw what he could do as a rookie in a kind of a miserable offense. Now let's put him in a situation with a good offense a year later, healthy, and see what he can do. I don't think he's a sleeper, but I think he's definitely in for some good production. And if you look at back at past offenses for Sean Payton, sometimes the dominant players were two tight ends that had good stats. So I think there's enough to go around depending on how he wants to spread the ball around. But I think the sky's kind of the limit next year and in following years if Dulcich can stay healthy, because he's got the talent. And as a rookie, he really did a pretty solid job, which is tough, as for a tight end as a rookie.
And we have Gyla Maples coming in here with a 1999 super sticker. Thank you, Gyla, for your support. We appreciate it. Got any comments? Just put them in the chat.
Yeah. Thank you for that. That's a huge sticker. Appreciate it. We really, really appreciate that support from you, Gyla. That's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gyla, again. And we got Keith coming in here. I want to pigging back from our conversation on Callaway. He says, I think Callaway gives the Broncos the option to move Sutton on a draft day trade.
It would have to be something pretty solid. I mean, they have Sutton's under contract for a while. Callaway's a 1-year deal. If you put them side by side, I don't think Callaway has the same abilities Sutton has. But you are right; it does give them flexibility if somebody comes in with a package that gives them enough to say, okay, we'll do it. We'll take our chances with Callaway and we'll move Sutton. So it is a possibility. I just don't think that move alone said, then we are going to trade Sutton. I still think that if a team comes in and says, here's a great deal for Sutton, they're going to do it, but they would do that anyway. Callaway just gives them a little bit of cushion to say, okay, we have somebody in as a depth player that we can slot in if necessary. But yeah, I think your point is valid.
Yep, you hit the nail right on the head there, Thomas. I think Callaway is more of a depth piece, at least for me. Maybe in certain situations they bring him out on the field, but In no way do I see that the Callaway signing being the end for Sutton. Let's try to trade Sutton, because the skill sets are far different. And what we think Sutton can do in a Sean Payton offense is yet to be seen, but we're encouraged given his given his skill set. So I really don't see that happening either.
Yeah. We got Gyla coming back in after the sticker, so appreciate it with the comment. So I'm glad we could get to your comment here. And Gyla says, so many close games. If we were that close last year with all the issues, just think what we can do with Payton. Go Broncos. Yeah, absolutely. There was some very close games that could have easily been won. And some of that was on coaching, and some of it was on, inability to stop the other team or execute. But what I think you will see in those close games, you're going to see better game management, better decision making from the coaching, and you will see players who actually are able to execute in the crunch when they needed to. And that's going to be if there's close games, I'm putting my money on Sean Payton, right? In that team versus what they were putting out last year, because, there's just a little bit more competence. Players will be more disciplined and more ready to execute. And that's what I kept saying last year. Somebody needed to step up and make a play when it mattered most. And that wasn't there. And for whatever reason, it wasn't happening. It was, maybe they didn't practice enough. Maybe they didn't have enough. And a lot of it was health for sure. But I think you're right. I think those close games should flip the other way. So if that's the case, we'll see a lot of wins.
And again, thank you, Gyla, for your comment. Much appreciated. Gyla, the most important thing is winning, and we're going to score points. We are going to score points. You're going to see an emphasis on this running game. We should see a better offensive line. We should see Russ maybe not go back to his old self, but a more competent Russ in this offense. We should start to see points being put on the board at Mile High and at these away games. And again, that's all we've been wanting, a competent offense. And with Payton at the helm, there's going to be some accountability as well, right? We did not have that in the Daniel Hackett era. And so, if a player is doing something wrong, expect the players to hear it from Sean Payton, right? So with this new scheme, offense, coaching is better, and more accountability, we should start to see more of a winning product on the field. And of course, that'll be better for the team overall.
Yeah, I'm going to say hi to Quentin. Quentin's coming in saying, hey, Broncos country, Mile High Huddle, Denver Broncos for life. Thank you so much for that. And he also came back in with, we just need Broncos to stay healthy. Stretch, ice, and massage. Let's see what they can do. Healthy. Go Broncos. I've been saying that health is the biggest thing. But you know what I really want to see on the field, besides wins, is to get a lead and then be able to run the clock out. This offensive line was brought in to run the ball. I want to see them get a lead and then just do that 4-minute offense that has been missing for a while. Just run the clock out. None of this, we got to, march down and score at the last minute. Just drive a stake into their heart, so to speak. Win the war of, the physical war, and just drain the life out of them to seal the victory. That's what I want to see returned to the Broncos and on game day. So we got Keith Brugman coming back in saying that he thinks Perrine could have a lot of people excited through the first few weeks of the season as Javonte is back. I think you're right. Go ahead and jump in here, Ron.
I agree, Keith. And again, thank you for that comment. And I believe I mentioned when Samaje Perine was signed, of course, he's not Javonte, but I guess the style of play is similar, where he's more of a bruiser, kind of run at you. And what he was able to do in that Cincinnati offense, expect more or less the same here in Denver with the emphasis on the running game. He's, of course, not only style of play with running the ball is good, he's a more than competent blocker, and he can catch it out of the backfield. So with that versatility, that should get fans excited for this offense to kind of start the season. And he'll be a good placer until Javonte is back. But him complemented maybe with Murray or someone else, I think that'll be a solid tandem, at least to kind of hold it until the Javonte that we know comes back into the fold.
Yeah, and I like him because he's an all-around back. He may not be, the explosive. He may not be that, the running backs you see that you're like, whoa, wow, he's a super explosive back and he's carrying the load. But he can block. He can catch passes out of the backfield. He can be in there on third down. He can do it all, and that's an all-around back. And that's what this Broncos offense really needs is someone who can, not just carry the load, but also be in there in crunch time and making sure they don't miss that blitzer coming off the edge or coming up the middle that he needs to block and seeing the quarterback getting smashed instead of winning the game. So I think that's a huge plus. I will give some of the rushing, the pure runner ability away to have that full complement that can actually step in when it matters most and take on that blocker and keep Russell Wilson upright. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do in Sean Payton's offense for sure.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So, we're almost at the mark and we don't really have too many more comments coming in. There's a few. Someone made a comment about Damari Mathis, I think, in there as being a sleeper. I think he's going to be a good player from what I don't know if he's a sleeper in my mind. I guess for me, it's someone that comes out of nowhere to be like, whoa, that guy really, really, we weren't expecting it. I think people are expecting Damari Mathis to be the boundary corner opposite of Surtain and doing well. Cause from what we saw, first game was rough, but he really settled into his own. But yeah, I think he's going to be one of those players that may be surprising to outsiders that aren't from Broncos country. They're like, whoa, he's playing a lot better than we thought. But people that watched him last year, I think, are pretty hopeful that he's going to step up and be that solid cornerback.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think Damari Mathis is considered a sleeper given what he did last year. I know he went through some challenges near the beginning when he started, but he rebounded well, and we expect him to take that next step, being opposite of Surtain. He was able to hold his own. So we should start to see more of that in this season, especially with this defensive scheme coming into play. So expect him to be explosive, going toe-to-toe with these receivers, getting up at point of attack, knocking the ball out. We should expect more of that here from Mathis in the coming year. So I'm excited for him as well.
Yeah, so let's wind this down, Ron. Don't forget that this is the Orange and Blue View Wednesday edition. Mile High Insiders will be on Saturday, 6:00. So don't miss out. And then we'll go back to our regular program. But I just want to say thank you to everyone in the chat and everybody that supported us tonight. It's always fun to see you all in here. And we probably didn't get to everybody's comment, but there's so many, like we said, when we're here by ourselves, we can't even get through them. So we're glad Scott was here. But don't forget to like the show. Don't forget to follow Ron at I don't know I can't see your Twitter handle. It's on there somewhere. Ron White at NFL, right? Ron White NFL, I think is what it is. Thomas Hall NFL. You can follow Scout Kennedy. You can to follow Scott on Twitter. And just make sure you check us out on Saturday nights as well. So we will be back the following Saturday, not this one coming up. But Ron, you got any final words before we call it a night?
Cautious optimism. I'm going to continue preaching that, guys. So again, what Denver was able to do in free agency, obviously the comments, praise around the league about Sean Payton, what Sean Payton was able to say about players and everything. It leaves us with cautious optimism, and we can only hope for a good turnaround. So, of course, we got the draft coming up, and then we're going to get more into the offseason. But, yeah, just be encouraged.
All right. Michael Ronquillo is going to say goodbye for us. And great show tonight. Thomas Hall and Ron White on Orange and Blue View. Go Broncos and buck 'em. Again, thank you very much. And we got Gary coming in at the last with a great super chat. So thank you so much. Saying good pod, guys. So with that, we can't really end it any better. So we'll just say good night. Go Broncos, and we'll see you next time. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.